Keep in mind, it was last night during the 8 o'clock hour on the East Coast when we learned that Hope Hicks had tested positive for coronavirus. We learned it through the reporting of another network, and we are all fully aware and have known Hope Hicks for many years. Hope Hicks worked for the First Lady before she was the First Lady in her business, and then worked during the campaign, then at the White House, then went over to News Corp, Rupert Murdoch's company, to work in media relations, and now is back at the White House. She is one of the president's most trusted advisors, and they spend a lot of time together. We all know that the president doesn't wear masks that often, and when we heard that Hope Hicks had tested positive for COVID-19, there was a bit of concern. The president then went on Hannity on Fox News Channel to talk about it. He said, you know, she's young and I'm not too worried about her. But immediately there were tests done on the president and all those who had been in and around Hope Hicks. And at that time, the president was tested. And then it was shortly after midnight last night, between midnight and 1 Eastern time, that word leaked that the president had tested positive, as had the First Lady. That was about all the information we got in the early morning hours, but it was stunning here on the East Coast to wake up to a series of alerts saying that the president has this disease, especially given that we all know that the president has these two comorbidities. 74 years old means he's in a high-risk age group, and clinically he is obese, given his height and weight and his body mass. So those are strikes against you, and those have the doctors paying much closer attention when patients in those two categories test positive for COVID-19. So they began testing all around him. We learned that Mike Lee, the Republican of Utah, had tested positive as well. And we learned that the president of the University of Notre Dame had tested positive. And we know that all of them were at the event for Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court on Saturday at the White House. There is video of Mike Lee hugging a number of people there and not wearing masks, no social distancing at all. And now, as we go back to try to put together with contact tracing and the rest to figure out where this came from, it's certainly within the realm of possibilities that that could have been the place, though we have no reporting to indicate it with any certitude. At any rate, that was 12 o'clock, between 12 and 1 o'clock this morning. Now here we are at 5:24 in the afternoon, and we've gone from the president perfectly healthy after a raucous and an enthusiastic debate. No matter how you thought of it, it was certainly that, and broke all the rules of that debate. The president was in great spirits at the time, and he certainly did not appear to be fatigued in any way by any stretch of the imagination. And then now we know that throughout the day he's had a low-grade temperature, that he has been fatigued. Sources told NBC News just yesterday that the president's voice was raspy and that he was tired yesterday. And this sort of fits with the progression of the early stage symptoms of COVID-19. Some people get these particular symptoms, a raspy voice, fatigue, and the rest, and that's all that ever happens. So, and a low-grade temperature is not uncommon at all. Some people get much sicker, and there's no way to know who's going to get sicker and who's not. But we know people in those high-risk categories are more vulnerable, and the president in two of those high-risk categories. So it's our understanding now that the president will walk out of the White House on his own, by his own accord, be taken to Marine One. From Marine One, he'll go to Walter Reed Medical Center, and that he will work there over the next few days while being closely monitored by his doctors. These are all the official releases from the White House doctor, and frankly, we don't have reporting past that. I can tell you that a number of other people, just about everyone who's been in and around the president over the last few days has been tested. I mentioned that Mike Lee, the Republican of Utah, had tested positive, but many had tested negative. The vice president, Mike Pence, and his wife tested negative. His opponent in the upcoming election, former Vice President Joe Biden, and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, both tested negative. And just a short time ago at a campaign rally, the former vice president wished the current president all the best, but then did say, you know, this is a signal that we need to follow the guidelines set forth by the CDC. Under the guidelines from the CDC, anyone who tests positive must be quarantined for at least 10 days. 10 days or 3 days after the final symptoms and temperature returns to normal, whichever is longer. So the president will need to be isolated for a period of time now, which calls into question a number of things. The first questions were, would the campaigning continue on the part of the president? Remember, we've been tracking here at CNBC the two different strategies that the two different campaigns have been taking. Vice President Biden largely doing virtual events. The vice president on one particular day paying respects to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, while President Trump was on the road campaigning. It had been a stark difference in the two campaign styles, and the question was, which one of these styles would end up working in the end? Well, now today we learned, as a result of this positive outcome of the test for COVID-19, that the president will be postponing or moving to virtual all of the previously announced campaign events. One of those would have been an event in Wisconsin this weekend, one of those large rallies that we've become accustomed to seeing. That rally, the in-person rally, has been canceled. The president will not be going to that or anything else like it, at least in the near future. So all of his campaign rallies have been canceled or moved to virtual. And now we find out that the president is about to leave the White House, leave the residence after being monitored by doctors throughout the day, and be taken by Marine One, which has just landed here, over to Walter Reed Medical Center, where doctors will monitor him over the next few days, according to the release from Kayleigh McEnany, and the president will continue to work there. We heard from a number of people today who said that they spoke with the president. Among them, Mitch McConnell, the majority leader in the Senate, said that he had spoken with him. In addition, Lindsey Graham, the senator of South Carolina, Republican senator of South Carolina, and close confidant of the president, had spoken with him, said that he was in good spirits, said that they had talked business this morning, and that the president was doing well. Then later in the day, we found out he'd been running this low-grade temperature, which is a sign of, it's one of the symptoms of this. And then we got the release from the White House that he had been given this Regeneron polyclonal antibody cocktail, which was surprising to some, including our own Meg Terrell, because it has not been to phase 3 trials, hasn't been proven effective and safe, but he completed that infusion without incident. And in addition to that, the president had been taking zinc, vitamin D, famotidine, melatonin, and a daily aspirin. So a group of medicines to try to stave off the virus so that his symptoms do not become worse, and so that the president could continue his work on behalf of the people. They've been very clear that the First Lady and the president seem to be on diverging courses, at least in the early going here. The First Lady said to be doing well, a mild cough and a headache, but those are the only symptoms that have been reported to us for the First Lady. And the remainder of the First Family said to be well and tested negative. Jared Kushner and Ivanka, the president's daughter, tested negative. The president and the First Lady's son, Barron Trump, tested negative. The vice president and his wife, the former vice president and his wife, all negative. And then many of the members of the cabinet have been tested as well. And all of the reporting on all of the members of the cabinet has been that, in fact, they have all tested negative. Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.